I don't know where I fall on this Patrick Beverley appearance today on ESPN.
Appearances.
Because,
he's everywhere. He's doing the full watch.
Well, because I never really want to, as I always say, I never want to criticize anybody for giving you the straight shot soundbite.
Yeah.
You want to know. That's why we watch sports television when athletes tell us what time it is, how athletes talk. We want to hear that. That's why, like LeBron's shop, his The Shop show gives you real talk. I mean, it's the only time you've even heard Brady talk in the manner in which he's talked that way. Like we appreciate that. We like that. So when Patrick Beverley comes on and gives you the straight, honest thoughts in his head, people dig it. But the question is when does it cross into disrespect?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened between Patrick Beverley and Chris Paul, but it is not cool between the two of them.
No.
And I guess, does this go back to their Clipper days? Did they cross paths at the Clippers, or they did not?
Just off the top of my head, I believe that Patrick got traded in the deal that brought Chris to Houston,
right.
I believe. I hadn't even thought about that in a while, but I think that's what they.
So I don't know what happened. And Chris Paul, as you know, can be an irritant to the opposition. So can Patrick Beverley. But Patrick Beverley called him a cone today, meaning that's his defensive prowess. He just stands still and you can run around him.
Yeah, you're right. Pat Bev was involved in the trade that sent Chris Paul to Houston.
Yeah.
So what? Like he had too large shoes to fill in L.A. or did Chris say something about him? Or
when does Chris say anything? I mean,
when I guard Chris Paul, I have steak and wine the night before. When I guard Steph Curry, I go to bed at 8 and tell my girl not to call me. That's what Patrick Beverley said, and it's funny. That's a funny line. It's a funny line.
Great quote.
But don't you think Chris Paul needs some level of respect?
Not according to Patrick Beverley.
Well, Patrick Beverley, also said that Chris Paul gets the calls all the time, and I mean he was all over Chris. Like, of all the days for Patrick Beverley to be scheduled to show up on the ESPN family of networks, the day that Chris Paul craps out again in the playoffs is just like, that's a big piece of steak for Patrick Beverley to dig into. But I just want to say this about the Suns season. Don't forget what happened at the beginning of it. We found out that their owner reportedly, is one of the most reprehensible people on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And when that report about Robert Sarver came out, I thought the Suns season is over. I'm like, how the hell are they going to do this? And I'm like, hey, here's Chris Paul again in the midst of another season where the owner is revealed to be somebody who is reprehensible to the point where you would have every right as a member of that team saying, I don't want his paycheck. I'm not playing for them. I'm not playing for that, what's on the front. I'll play for what's on the back. And the Suns won over 60 games. Testament to, the coach of the year and Monty Williams, but Chris Paul had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Devin Booker was an MVP candidate.
And Chris Paul's going to the Hall of Fame. Where's Patrick Beverley going? He said they wanted the Suns in their locker room. He threw George under the bus, saying that the two of them were talking last night that nobody fears the Suns. Which is, again, I think, and if Patrick Beverley wants to have a career in media, he clearly has the ability to communicate in a very straightforward and humorous manner. That just seemed to be, he seemed to be angry today. And I'm telling you, man, it's tough to hear somebody say that when, how far has he been? Yeah. Where's he gone?
Rich,
is he going to Springfield, Mass, or what? Because that's where Chris Paul's going. But then again, I don't know their history. I'm just telling.
Well, you remember the end of the playoffs last year when he hit him,
of course,
gave him that dirty cheap shot. Yeah,
right. And Beverley was roundly criticized for that. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, that might have been the final straw for him here in Los Angeles.
They claimed it was a money issue, but Rich, what I did see today that I've never seen, because I was watching that this morning before work. Stephen A. Smith will argue with anyone, you know. He actually, for the first time, I heard him say to Pat Beverley, well, you played the game and I didn't, so I'll take your word for it. And I just thought that was just like, I've seen Stephen A. Smith argue with many athletes.
Again, but
Patrick
was talking, you know, straight, uncut. This is what we're talking about in the locker room. And clearly Stephen's not in the locker room. This is what we're talking about as players in the NBA. And Stephen A. is not a player in the NBA. So
yeah, but
does that, if you are on a show where you're chopping it up and you're going back and forth, I mean, what more can you say other than that?
I've just never heard Stephen A., who's gotten into thousands of arguments with athletes. I won't say he backed down from the argument, but it was just like he gave him that. And that was just odd to me.
I'm just telling what it felt like watching that. And I'm like, interesting. This is what players are saying. And then after a while, I'd be kind of like, and as you know, I haven't been the biggest Chris Paul, you know, flag waver from this chair. I thought before his son's tenure, you could still even put, after what happened with the Rockets and the Clippers, you could still put his candidacy for the Hall of Fame under a microscope. Not anymore, I don't think. He's clearly an all-time great. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I sat there and I'm like, what has Patrick Beverley done? Like, at some point, it's just like, what have you done?
Yeah, I mean,
you know, and so for him to come on ESPN and say that, I thought it was interesting, fun, funny. I mean, he made me laugh out loud a couple times, but you know, towards the end of it, it's just like,
it got very personal.
I know you got an axe.
Yeah, it got really.
It was just grinding it.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul damn near made it to the Western Conference Finals on a team that found out early in the season something about ownership that they might have been suspecting, and it's all out there, and they overcame all of that stuff. And I thought in the end, you know, it's a disappointment that they didn't get back to the finals and that they won all those games and that they didn't even make it to their conference finals. And you can be critical of Chris Paul for all that. But, I mean, the dude's still out there at 37, still doing it. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.